Chosen one. The community that plotted against you, the very people who believed they could outsmart you and seize what was rightfully yours, has finally been exposed. Their entire web of corruption now lies in plain sight, documented on an investigator's desk. There's no talking their way out of this. Those who once fancied themselves clever enough to dismantle your reputation and erase your future have, in the end, delivered all the evidence needed to trigger their own collapse. This wasn't some hastily thrown together scheme. No, it was methodically crafted over months of secret family meetings. They dissected your life in microscopic detail, your weaknesses, your relationships, your finances, your daily habits. They searched obsessively for the perfect angle of attack. Even your personality wasn't spared. They analyzed it to discover which strategy would wound you the deepest, studying your social circles to identify which bonds they could weaponize. To execute this plan, they hired someone, a skilled infiltrator, who slipped into your life like a shadow. This person studied your behavior, mimicked your energy, mirrored how you spoke and handled conflict. In time, they became a distorted echo of you, more agreeable, more eager to please. And slowly, subtly, the shift began. Friends noticed something was off, though they couldn't explain why. Your image, once clear, began to blur. You felt misunderstood, unsettled. This imposter made it their mission to be present wherever you were, silently observing, practicing, perfecting their disguise, until they became a convincing counterfeit of who you truly are. But you, the chosen one, sensed the truth. Your spirit caught the false energy long before your mind could make sense of it. You felt the discomfort in places that used to bring ease. You saw the shift in how others looked at you. There was a heaviness whenever this person was near, a weight only you could feel. At the heart of this betrayal was money, your inheritance, your business, your assets, things that rightfully belonged to you. Someone in your own family simply couldn't bear to see you blessed. They convinced themselves you didn't deserve it, that they could manage better, or that your fortune should be shared. But their motives ran deeper than greed. They felt entitled. They saw your success not as earned, but as something selfish, something that should be redistributed. They believed their need outweighed your right. Determined to bring you down, they pooled their resources to fund this calculated takedown. This wasn't emotional impulse. It was strategy. It was business. They held planning meetings, divided responsibilities, and raised a collective fund. Some went as far as draining their savings, selling possessions, or even taking loans, just to keep the operation alive. Their investment in your destruction was staggering and telling. They didn't flinch. They paid the infiltrator well, fully aware of the spiritual and legal consequences. This person took their payment up front, knowing they were stepping into dangerous territory. And your own family? They handed over the money willingly to someone whose mission was to break you. Mission was to destroy your peace, damage your reputation, and jeopardize your financial future. The payment arrangement was as organized as a professional contract. There was an initial fee for their services, ongoing monthly compensation for sustained efforts, and additional bonuses awarded when specific milestones in their campaign against you were met. In essence, your downfall became a paid position, bankrolled by those who should have protected you most. What stings even more is not just the betrayal itself, but the cold, calculated nature behind it all. These were people who probably once sat around the same dinner tables with you during holidays, now scheming with precision on how best to dismantle everything you'd worked for, strategizing like executives planning a hostile takeover. The hired operative approached your life with the focus and skill of a professional spy. They studied your daily routines, assessed your relationships, and mapped out your vulnerabilities, placing themselves carefully within your social circles, workplace, and broader community. No matter where you had a connection, this person found a way to insert themselves, making the infiltration methodical and sophisticated. They even went as far as creating fake social media profiles to monitor your activity, befriending people in your extended network to gather even more information, and making sure they attended any event where you'd be present, always appearing supportive and friendly, while secretly documenting everything they saw. Their job was not just to imitate you, but to present a version of your energy that seemed even more polished, agreeable, and accommodating than you. They copied your manner of speaking, your ideas, and your approach to relationships, but without the authentic foundation that made you real. This imitation went far beyond just surface-level mimicry. The infiltrator actually studied your core values and learned to voice them even more eloquently, observed your natural talents, and tried to showcase those abilities in ways that appeared even more impressive, and identified your character strengths only to present themselves as embodying those qualities to an exaggerated degree. They also began weaving carefully crafted stories about you, not outright lies, but subtle distortions of the truth containing just enough fact to seem credible. They would paint you as unstable, unreliable, or potentially even dangerous, suggesting to others that you were hiding something, that your success was built on deception, or that people should exercise caution around you. These narratives were constructed with surgical precision. They would take a truth about you and then layer in fictional details that completely altered its meaning. If you were confident, they portrayed you as arrogant. If you were independent, they painted you as selfish. And if you were successful, they implied your achievements were due to questionable behavior. As a result, your authentic relationships started to suffer. People who had known and trusted you for years began to question things they'd never doubted before. The infiltrator was a master at sowing seeds of doubt while never appearing to be the source, always positioning themselves as the concerned friend, the worried relative, or the innocent bystander who simply thought people ought to know the truth. The psychological manipulation was so expertly executed that they never directly criticized you. Instead, they would express worry about your well-being, wonder aloud if you were under too much stress, or suggest your recent behavior was somehow out of character. All the while, they maintained the facade of caring about you, even as they systematically eroded everyone's trust in your stability and integrity. Unfortunately, your family didn't stop at character assassination. They escalated their campaign to legal warfare, attempting to use the justice system as another weapon against you. False reports were filed and fraudulent documents created as they sought to portray you as someone who needed to be stopped, contained, or punished. The legal strategy employed against you was both multifaceted and highly calculated. They filed complaints with multiple agencies, hoping that at least one allegation would stick, and crafted documents that looked legitimate at first glance, but were laced with subtle falsehoods meant to undermine your reputation and position. To add weight to their claims, they recruited witnesses who were willing to testify to completely fabricated events, all with the aim of painting you as unstable or even dangerous. Their ultimate goal was to entangle you in legal battles that would drain your resources, tarnish your name, and potentially restrict your freedom or access to your own finances. While you were forced to defend yourself against these baseless accusations, they positioned themselves as innocent victims of your supposed misconduct, counting on the process itself to devastate you, even if their claims didn't hold up in the end. The costs of legal defense were meant to drain your savings. The relentless stress was designed to take a toll on your health, and the public exposure was intended to permanently damage your standing in the community. Even as the case unfolded, your family members acted as if they were reluctant participants, telling others they had no choice but to take legal action and claiming to be heartbroken over having to pursue these measures against someone they loved. They framed their attacks as acts of concern for your well-being and the safety of others, presenting the entire ordeal as an intervention rather than a coordinated assault. What they never anticipated, however, was the power of divine justice that always finds a way to shield chosen ones walking in their purpose. Almost immediately, their legal maneuvers began to unravel. The evidence failed to support their claims. Witnesses faltered and couldn't keep their story straight, and officials quickly noticed the inconsistencies and gaps in their documentation. Instead of your downfall, this became the start of their exposure. Quick pause, family. If this message is resonating with your soul and you feel called to support this sacred work, you can buy me a coffee. Your generosity helps keep this channel flowing with truth, light, and divine clarity. Link is in the description, and if you're feeling the message, drop number 88 in the comments below. Now let's keep going. In their arrogance, your family and their hired operative made a fatal error. They relied heavily on digital communication to coordinate their conspiracy against you. Phone calls, text messages, emails, and social media exchanges were used to document every step of their scheme in real time, convinced that they were too clever to ever get caught. The result was an extensive and incriminating digital trail, group chats where family members celebrated successful attacks on your reputation, email threads mapping out payment schedules for the hired operative, and voice messages providing updates on the campaign's progress. Even social media posts, which seemed harmless to outsiders, were laced with coded language referencing their ongoing operations. They discussed who to target next, shared details about your daily life, and coordinated their stories for consistency whenever questioned. They even planned the timing of character attacks for maximum impact, launching their assaults right before important milestones or events in your life. What they didn't realize is that law enforcement has highly advanced methods for monitoring digital communications whenever there's suspicion of fraud, conspiracy, or other serious crimes. Once investigators identified the pattern of harassment and financial manipulation, they quickly secured the authority to monitor all communications among those involved. Ironically, the very technology your attackers believed would make their schemes more effective ultimately became the instrument that sealed their downfall. Every digital interaction they had created a permanent record that couldn't be denied or explained away. The evidence was not only time-stamped and archived, but also easily accessible to investigators who understood precisely what patterns to search for. Soon, your family members and their hired operative found themselves under constant surveillance. Every phone call, every text, every social media message added to an ever-expanding file of evidence. Unbeknownst to them, their private conversations were being recorded, transcribed, and analyzed by professionals trained in detecting criminal conspiracies. The irony was striking. The very technology they relied on to orchestrate their attack on you became the exact instrument that documented and exposed every move they made. Their misplaced confidence in their own cleverness blinded them to the digital trail they were weaving directly into the legal system. There was a key official assigned to review cases just like yours, cases where families tried to manipulate the legal system to steal from or control their own relatives. This individual had seen enough fraudulent cases to spot the patterns almost immediately, and they had both the experience and the integrity required to see through sophisticated deception. Unlike others who might have been swayed by emotional arguments or fake evidence, this official approached your case with a skeptical, thorough, investigative mindset. They looked at the documentation your family submitted and instantly sensed something was off. The timeline didn't match up. The evidence seemed suspiciously manufactured, and the witness statements were inconsistent. Most importantly, when reviewing your history, character, and actions, nothing supported the accusations being leveled against you. As the investigation unfolded, glaring inconsistencies began to emerge. Dates that didn't align with known facts, witness accounts that contradicted each other, and financial records that pointed to suspicious activity by your accusers rather than by you. Sensing deeper corruption, the official began requesting more documentation, interviewing witnesses with greater scrutiny, and cross-referencing financial records. They soon discovered the secret payments made to the hired individual, the planning meetings behind closed doors, and the digital communications that laid out the entire conspiracy. What started as a simple review of a family legal dispute quickly expanded into a full-blown criminal investigation. The official worked with other agencies and departments to make sure every aspect was properly examined, turning what your family thought would be a quick, decisive victory into a comprehensive probe of their own criminal activities. The same legal system they tried to weaponize against you ultimately became the force that brought their deeds to light and held them accountable. Once the investigation began in earnest, everything started unraveling for your attackers at an astonishing pace. The hired operative, realizing they were under official scrutiny, quickly lost the artificial confidence that came from feeding off your energy and resources. The stress became unbearable. They couldn't sleep, lost their appetite, and were no longer able to maintain the smooth, convincing persona that had fooled so many. The psychological pressure of being investigated for serious crimes proved overwhelming for someone whose identity was built entirely on deception. They started making mistakes, contradicting themselves, appearing anxious in public, and failing to keep up the polished image they once maintained so easily. Meanwhile, the family members who had funded the entire operation were suddenly facing consequences they'd never anticipated. Their own reputations and actions were now under the microscope as the truth began to surface for all to see. Their financial activities were now under close examination, and their legal liability became so evident that attorneys began to distance themselves from the case. Legal professionals who had originally agreed to represent your family members soon withdrew, unwilling to risk their reputations on a matter so entangled with conspiracy and fraud. The mounting evidence created ethical dilemmas no reputable attorney wanted to touch, leaving your family scrambling for legal representation as it became obvious that their case was deeply problematic. On top of that, business relationships that had been propped up by money meant for you began to crumble. Professional partnerships dissolved. Financial institutions started probing into suspicious transactions and employment. Situations grew unstable for those whose careers relied on maintaining public trust. The fallout stretched far beyond legal fees and potential restitution. Family members who used their own assets to fund the campaign against you found themselves financially overextended. Some faced foreclosure on properties they had leveraged to raise money for the conspiracy, while others saw their credit ratings suffer due to missed payments and drained accounts. As the consequences multiplied, community members who had been manipulated into turning against you started to see through the lies. The mounting evidence became impossible to ignore, and people began recalling inconsistencies in the stories they'd heard, questioning why they were so quick to believe the worst about someone they had always known to be trustworthy. The social atmosphere in your community began to shift. Those who had once distanced themselves reached out with apologies, and those who remained loyal to you felt vindicated. The hired operative, once surrounded by supporters, found themselves increasingly isolated as the truth unraveled and their fabricated network dissolved. Through all of this, you demonstrated the true nature of a chosen one. You didn't retaliate. Despite knowing the extent of the attack and having every reason to strike back with the same underhanded tactics, you chose to maintain your integrity. You trusted that the truth would reveal itself in time without having to compromise your values. This unwavering commitment created a kind of spiritual shield around you that their operative couldn't break through. Every attack they launched seemed to backfire. Every lie exposed their own deceit, and every trap they set ended up ensnaring them instead. The protection you received even manifested in practical ways that seemed almost miraculous. Legal documents meant to harm you were revealed as forgeries. Witnesses supposedly credible were exposed as coached or bribed, and evidence intended to incriminate you actually pointed back to their own wrongdoing. Through it all, you continued living your daily life and pursuing your goals, steadfast in your purpose, even while under relentless attack. Your unwavering consistency and calm throughout this ordeal became undeniable proof of your stability and integrity. While your attackers spiraled into panic and desperation, shifting stories and changing strategies, you remained anchored in truth, never wavering from your core values or losing sight of your purpose. This steadfastness didn't go unnoticed. Investigators, witnessing your unwavering behavior, compiled a comprehensive and meticulous record of the entire conspiracy arrayed against you. They traced bank records that clearly documented payments made to the hired individual, carefully matched to phone records that revealed patterns of secret coordination between family members. Lengthy email chains were uncovered, exposing the detailed planning and step-by-step execution of the plot. Social media activity was analyzed and shown to be a vehicle for the calculated spread of false information about you. Legal documents were scrutinized, and it became abundantly clear that many of the claims made were fraudulent and part of a broader strategy to destroy your good name and future. The sheer volume and detail of this paper trail were staggering. Every single aspect of the campaign was documented with precision. Investigators could account for every participant, tracing their roles, communications, and financial transactions to the last detail. Every fabricated story, every lie, every underhanded move was cataloged and connected back to those responsible. This mountain of evidence didn't just vindicate you, it formed an unbreakable foundation for legal proceedings that would soon result in consequences far more severe than anything your enemies had ever tried to impose on you. Those who once set out to ruin your future were about to discover that it was their own futures now hanging in the balance. The strength of the evidence against them was so overwhelming that for most conspirators, plea negotiations quickly became the only realistic option. The risk of going to trial facing such undeniable documentation of their criminal actions was a gamble no experienced defense attorney would recommend. The official who had uncovered the truth took swift action, initiating a process that not only cleared your name, but also actively restored everything that had been taken from you. Your reputation, once under attack, was now officially and publicly vindicated. Your financial standing, which had been threatened by their schemes, was both protected and restored. Your legal status was completely cleared, leaving no trace of the false claims that had once clouded your record. But the restoration went even deeper. Official statements were issued to confirm that you had been the target and victim of a criminal conspiracy. Public records were amended, removing any misinformation that had been entered due to fraudulent actions. Yet, the universe's restoration didn't stop at merely returning you to where you had been before this ordeal. The exposure of the conspiracy actually elevated you to new heights. Your integrity and character became a matter of public record, widely recognized and deeply respected. People in your community and beyond understood now that you had survived a calculated attack, not because you fought fire with fire, but because you remained true to yourself. Your resilience and honesty stood in stark contrast to the dishonesty and destruction perpetrated by your attackers. In the aftermath, the universe seemed to return everything that was stolen from you, plus interest. The restoration brought not just tangible assets, but also invaluable intangible benefits. Your reputation was stronger than ever. Your relationships deepened, and you gained a lasting legacy for integrity that would open new doors and bring unexpected blessings for years to come. Meanwhile, those family members who orchestrated this elaborate plot against you quickly learned that the consequences of their choices stretched far beyond legal liability. Their reputations, once perhaps respected, were permanently damaged in the eyes of the community. The financial fallout from their legal fees and court-ordered restitution left many of them unstable or even destitute. Criminal records haunted them, casting long shadows over job opportunities, housing applications, and professional licensing for years to follow. Family members who once held positions of trust or influence in their communities found themselves removed from those roles the moment their criminal activity was exposed. And as for the hired individual who was paid to destroy your life, they faced not only the harsh reality of legal consequences, but also the total collapse of their influence and credibility. Even within the spiritual realm, their actions backfired in every dimension, leaving you stronger and freer than ever. A testament to the power of truth, faith, and unwavering character. The very gifts and abilities that your adversaries and their hired operative once weaponized against you were now, by a twist of fate and divine law, redirected back at them. Where they once used their spiritual sensitivities, intuition, and persuasive talents to manipulate and undermine you, these abilities suddenly became burdens they could no longer control or even access. The hired individual who had built a livelihood on providing spiritual services to others suddenly found themselves unable to tap into the energies or insights that once came so naturally. It was as if a veil had been drawn between them and the spiritual realm, leaving them powerless, isolated, and completely alone. The sense of loss was devastating, especially for someone who had relied on these gifts for their personal identity and professional reputation. As word of their involvement in the conspiracy spread, their credibility in spiritual and metaphysical circles crumbled. Clients who once sought their guidance distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with someone exposed for deceit and manipulation. Opportunities vanished, invitations dried up, and the isolation grew deeper. For them, this was not just a social or financial setback, but a spiritual exile that left them cut off from the very abilities they once took for granted. Meanwhile, as a chosen one, you were never meant to be destroyed by this orchestrated attack. Instead, you were destined to survive, rise above it, and emerge stronger, wiser, and more protected than ever before. This entire ordeal became a crucible, a purification process that not only forced disloyal people out of your circle, but also made it clear who truly valued and deserved access to your energy. The painful events you endured taught you priceless lessons about the complexity of human nature, the hidden shadows within family dynamics, and the extraordinary lengths some will go to in order to take what isn't rightfully theirs. You learn to see through masks and recognize the subtle signs of deception and manipulation, skills that will now shield you from similar betrayals in the future. Perhaps the greatest treasure you gained is a renewed, unshakable trust in your own intuition. Every gut feeling you had during this storm, the strange chills, the persistent doubts, the nagging sense that something wasn't right, was absolutely accurate. Even when your concerns were dismissed by others or you were told you were imagining things, you now know every one of those instincts was grounded in truth. This experience has sharpened your spiritual discernment to an extraordinary level, giving you a lifelong gift. You will never again ignore or second-guess the subtle signals from your inner guidance. You now recognize that this internal warning system is one of the markers of being chosen, a protective tool meant to guide you through life's unseen challenges. Furthermore, this journey revealed just how deeply you are protected when you align yourself with a higher purpose. You witness firsthand the unseen hands of the universe working in your favor the moment you refuse to lower your vibration or stoop to the level of those attacking you. By staying true to your values and integrity, you activated universal forces that orchestrated your rescue and vindication in ways you could never have managed alone. The restoration that's coming to you isn't just about reclaiming lost assets or opportunities. It's the universe's way of honoring the fact that you passed a profound test of faith and character. You proved under extreme pressure that your commitment to truth, love, and justice is unbreakable. Instead of taking vengeance or resorting to manipulation, you trusted divine timing and allowed justice to unfold naturally. As a result, your life is now being elevated in every way. Not only will your finances and reputation be restored, but you'll also enjoy increased respect, deeper relationships, and a newfound spiritual authority that radiates from your presence. Your story stands as a powerful testimony to others walking a similar path, proof that chosen ones are protected and uplifted even when their trials come from those closest to them. The same divine purpose that made you a target in the first place ensured your ultimate victory. From this moment forward, your life will be marked by a level of protection and insight that makes you nearly immune to future attacks of this nature. Those who tried to destroy you have, without realizing it, equipped you with a supernatural wisdom and discernment that will serve you for decades to come. You have emerged from this fire not as a victim, but as living proof that you are a chosen one, showing your victory is undeniable and complete. The most profound irony is that the very people who plotted to tear you down became the unwitting instruments through which your divine purpose, protection, and destiny were revealed to the world. Their hatred was transformed into the very fuel that elevated you. Their conspiracy, meant to be your undoing, has instead become the unshakable foundation for your vindication, restoration, and unstoppable ascent. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I will offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work,